live with Frank Snodgrass and Ryan Ciminelli. Just
Hello.
a yep. How you doing, guys?
You're good.
We have these guys here tonight. These gentlemen here tonight. They were on the winning team at for the Elias Cup this year at Bayside Bowl for the PBA League for the Waco Wonders, and just kind of have a little one-on-one or one-on-two here. So it's a little different for an interview I've done before with two guys. So, you guys can just kind of jump in whenever, when I throw a question out, maybe one of you want to avoid it and maybe the other one will answer, however you guys want to go.
Here we go.
So, yeah, here we go. So, first of all, congratulations. That was very fun to watch.
Thank you.
And then knowing everybody on your team as I'm watching made it even more cool, after meeting everybody and being able to watch bowl on fortunately I wasn't there to watch it. I had to watch it on TV, but it was still pretty exciting for me to watch it, being the bowling nerd that I am. So just a little bit of background for you guys. What's your home center? Where are you guys from? Just to let everybody know what you're all about. Frank, you can start.
How about it, Frankie?
Okay, I'll go. So I've grown up Metro Detroit area pretty much my whole life. I primarily bowl at 5-Star in Sterling Heights, but home is becoming Tempinelli in Tecumseh, Michigan for me now. That's the bowling center that Jordan, my fiance, and her family owns. So I've been spending a lot of time there lately and
getting better.
With the community, and it's so crazy to see how close-knit a small community is and how everybody knows everybody compared to Metro Detroit, where there's thousands of bowlers and you could walk into a bowling alley and see no one that you know for the first time.
Yeah.
So it's pretty wild to see both ends of the spectrum.
I am living in South Carolina outside Lake Wiley now. I would say my home center is now Strikers in Rock Hill. Chuck Gardner has the shop there, so I do a lot of my stuff there, and either Chuck 2 or Rob Lehman take care of me there.
Chuck is a first-class individual.
Yes, the whole family is.
Yep.
We call him Tour Dad.
Well, that's fair. Fair.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just down here living life, loving it. Family's great. We just moved in November, so we're coming up on a year. So we're still kind of making this house our home.
It takes a little while.
Yeah, it does, and we've been spoiling ourselves. So the win was nice, not just to get the win and enjoy that with the guys, but the financial part of it too. So we've been putting money into the house, and it's really coming along well.
Well, you've had a pretty good summer altogether, bowling wise. Every time I jump on Facebook over after the weekend, you're winning something. So
yeah,
it seems like you've kind of got a good feel right now.
The bowling scene down here is pretty great.
Good.
The amateurs, they're willing to bowl, man. They're okay. They're not too proud. They're not too scared. Back when I was up north, we got locked out of so much stuff that they wouldn't even let us walk in the building. So
I read those stories and it drives me nuts.
It's nice that we're allowed to lace up, and as long as that lasts, I'm still gonna bowl. I enjoy it. I enjoy the community down here. People are awesome. I have a blast, and fortunately make money as well. So
yeah,
pretty cool.
You would like it here in Cincinnati too. I keep everybody pretty busy down here, and when Graham bowls a lot of my stuff, and we got Brandon Novak. We get several folks that come in and out of the tournaments, and Frank's been down to several of my tournaments before. Yep. And the guys around here, they say bring them on. They're ready to have, they love having the opportunity to shoe it up against the big boys, and they kind of test their, where they are. And plus it's a lot of fun for them. So I'm glad that you're in a place now that allows you to do that. But you're going to have to make the drive one of these times. We're not that far away.
Not too far. 6 hours, I think.
Yeah.
Only really? Wow.
Frank, you're only 3 or 4 north of me, aren't you?
Yeah, about 4-ish.
Gotcha. How old were you guys when you started bowling? Has this been a lifelong thing for you?
Yeah, my grandpa owned a pro shop for when I was a child, so he got me started early. So there's pictures of me crawling around pushing a bowling ball to where it's
Same
as soon as possible.
Yep.
Ryan, same for you.
Same thing. Yep.
See, if you guys were not a PBA player, and I know you have other jobs, Ryan, I know you do for sure, because you're my boss. What is your dream job if you guys were not PBA professionals? Did you have something when you were a kid? It's like, when I grow up, I'm going to be. Either one of you had a dream that you had, or still there?
I've watched enough crime shows to know that I wish I was an attorney or a lawyer, because they just own the whole courtroom. They're so smart. Like,
I'm stuck on crime shows too, man.
Walking, like, I'm the hardest one here, and I'm gonna
That's awesome.
I would love that.
Ryan, about yourself?
I shared this song, as much of a hip hop nut that I am. I shared the song with Chuck, and we kind of had this huge talk about it. Luke Combs made a country song called "Doing This," and it's a song basically that says, if I wasn't doing this, I'd still be doing this.
Yeah. That's a great
answer. My dream was that it would make me a lot more financially stable than it does.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd still pick bowling. I'd still pick this industry. Obviously, just wish there was more money to go around.
Sure. I mean, the industry itself it's taken me in good places, and I probably wouldn't be anywhere else. I was out of it for about 10 years and got back into the industry. When I moved back to Cincinnati, I was down in Florida for a little while, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else either. So I totally get that answer. Do you guys have any idols, anybody you've looked up to as a kid or even now? That's a bowling idol, so to speak, or personal?
Well, for me, it was always Parker.
I'm sorry?
It was always Parker.
Yeah.
I got stories from when I was probably, I couldn't be maybe 6 years old. What year was it that he bowled 300 throwing the Attitude 3 at the Masters? What year was that? 90. Man. Is that 98? Can't remember. I had to be 10 or 12 years old or whatever it was. And I was in my living room, and I would pretend that I was him, and I would go through my approach and pretend it was me throwing the ball. And when he threw the one to bowl 300, I ran it out into my Christmas tree. And my mom had all these like collectible precious moment ornaments, and the whole tree was full of them. And I knocked the whole tree over. I was grounded for like 3 months.
You created your own precious moment with that one.
It was brutal. Never forget it.
Frank, what about yourself?
If I had,
you just rolled your eyes up at him like we're on Hollywood Squares with his answer.
Yeah. If I pick one person, probably Tommy, like, because when I was really growing up and I was at the age of like really watching bowling a lot, is during the duration of when he was dominating. Like, I remembered like every show I felt like Tommy was on making the show, throwing the one. And I'm like, man, this guy is sick. Like,
he still is.
I love yeah, he's still disgusting, and it's been awesome to like get close with him and be able to bowl stuff with him, or just whatever the case is. So it's kind of like surreal moments sometimes, like when you sit back and you're like, man, I remember being a kid sitting at home watching this guy. Shout out Tommy for being old, letting me do.
You guys are all younger than me, so it's okay. Even Tommy, I'm sure he's younger than I am too.
At least you have some hair.
What's that?
Yeah,
I said, at least you have hair.
A little, a little bit. All All right, so it's PBA draft day this past year. And I mean, did you guys have a feeling you'd be drafted with somebody? Where you had no idea? Did Frank just disappear?
Hold on.
The lights went out. You got to pay your bills, Frank.
Yeah, no shit, right?
So
Gotta find like
that's funny. I'll wait for Frank.
Yeah, while we're waiting for Frank to turn the lights back on, there's a good crowd watching so far. We just need to ask everybody to hit the share button for us. Get this out to as many folks as you can. This is something pretty cool for all of us to be able to do. So, hey, there he is. Welcome back. So back to that question. When it was PBA draft day.
Mm-hmm.
And did you have a feeling you'd be drafted? I mean, you had a great start to the season this year out on tour, so I'm sure your name was one of the hot names out there. But did you?
So
Go ahead.
So the week before draft day, when the PBA had announced when the draft was going to be, BJ had reached out to me and was like, "Hey man, like I just want to let you know, like I'm really pushing for you. Like I'm bringing your name up in conversation. Like you're the guy that I want." And I just said, all right, man, like, I appreciate it. We'll see what happens. Because it's one of those things to where come draft day, I was kind of sitting in reflection and, asking myself, would I draft me if I had a team? Like, did I do enough, or do I think that I deserved to be drafted? So even with his, recommendations or whatnot, even when draft day came and the picks were coming, and in my head I'm like, okay, like I don't think this guy's gonna get picked, I don't think this guy's gonna get picked, or I don't think they're gonna save this guy. You make up so many scenarios in your head that when it starts playing out, then you like panic almost.
Yeah, I was gonna say you can make yourself sick doing that.
I'm like, the cards just aren't in it this year. Like, all right, like in my head I'm like, all right, let's get back to work. Like I'm ready to get back to work. I'm ready to get drafted next year. And then it was funny because I was working at the time. And like I had people texting me, so I would like swipe up off my phone to answer a text. So I ended up getting a little bit behind. And BJ had texted me like, "Hey, are you watching?" And it was still like 2 or 3 picks ahead of Waco. And then a pick or two goes by, and it's the pick before me, and my phone is blowing up like, "Congratulations, so sweet, so sweet." So like I didn't even get to watch myself get picked before people. And I'm like, well, I got picked.
Yeah. Well, it kind of takes the fun out of that part, but still pretty exciting. I mean, that's the first time that you've been there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I kind of feel spoiled with my first time at.
Well, you did it right, man.
PBA.
You did it right.
Yeah, right.
Ryan?
Yeah, so as we all know, I was quite shocked when I was even in the draft.
You and I were actually texting that day when we were watching some of the draft stuff. So
I think I texted Sterner because we're roommates and told him that I couldn't believe it. And then it was maybe 10 minutes later, BJ texts me and he's like, "You got let go?" I'm like, "Yeah, man." He's like, "Hang on." And apparently what happened was he called Johnny, and they had a team conversation between the core and Johnny, and they essentially said, "We're not going to go after any lefty because we're just scared of having 2 lefties on the team, and if they ever just decide to change the left, that you're basically dead." And then Johnny heard that I was in the draft, and I guess he called Parker, and he was like, "Parker, I know we talked about this, but Ciminelli's in the draft." And Parker goes, "Well, that changes everything."
Right.
And so apparently, like, I was their number 1 on their list from the moment they found out. I'm pretty sure, based on some of the combos, that I was also very, very high, if not number 1 on the Lumberjacks list as well. 2 more picks down. So I guess it wasn't so much that I was worried about getting drafted. It was just I was curious on who was really going to pull the trigger. And Waco did it before the Lumberjacks had the opportunity to do it. And obviously we know how that all played out, and it was pretty cool. They got Graham. Graham never missed. I'm sure
Graham great.
It was unreal.
Yeah.
And frankly, I wouldn't change it for a thing, man. It was the way our team just continued to bond, and the chemistry grew, and the whole mentality of the ice in the veins and the chip on the shoulder, how it snowballed into the team as we bowled and got further into the tournament. I could see it happening and I could feel it, and it was a feeling like no other. So I mean, I wouldn't have changed it for a thing.
Right. And I actually have that question down the way a little bit, but we'll jump to it. What do you think made your team mesh so well together? I mean, because you could tell just watching, the 5 of you were, and Johnny, the 6 of you, definitely had a nice, I don't even know where the right word, but you guys were all together and step for step and talking all the way through everything and watching each other's shots. And I don't know what, when you got 5 guys from all around the country, and a lot of you bowled against or with each other in other situations, but to put 5 guys together and to watch, especially a fairly new team, and you guys just really bonded together as good as anybody else that was there. So what put that together? What made it so good?
So to go off like Ryan's last few points is like he had so much confidence, and it wasn't just the confidence, it was the fact that he backed it
Ryan's
up,
confident?
like in yeah, I know. He backed the biggest moments, and it's like it's hard for that to not transfer into the other players. Like he's just exuding confidence all over live television, and it's like, all right, like he bailed us out, like now let's get him into a position where it's over. Like let's just come together, lock in, and we really embraced like the underdog, or the fact that we were counted out the whole time. Like why the argument, like we just asked each other, why not us? Like why can't we win? Like who says that we can't win this event?
I just think that, Parker's Parker, and he's so well liked, and he just has one of those personalities. He's going to be able to mesh with just about anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But the other 4 of us, you got 4 guys that just look at the game the same way, that have the same mentality. We all just got we kept saying it throughout the week, like we're 4 guys that we got the dog in us. Like we're gonna go fight. We'll go in the trenches. We don't care. The moments aren't too big. We're always gonna have each other's backs, and just 4 people that see it the same way makes it very easy to create a bond and some really good chemistry.
Well, it did. I got to tell you, it was fun to watch.
Yeah.
One of the shows I remember, I think it was early on when I wasn't performing the way that I wanted to, and we all came together, and Sim came to me, and I'm like, man, it feels like the replacements, like we have some. That was like another mantra, like that we kept the rest of the week. Like every time, like gotta have that, like you gotta have heart, like you gotta pick yourself up and pull yourself to the finish line.
Well, and that the Baker style, that could go with everybody if they're all going in the right direction. It can go very, very good, but it can go sour quickly on a 5-man Baker.
Yeah.
It open in the middle of a game just like any other game, but it truly can affect your teammates and change things dramatically. So like I said, it was fun to watch. And I know, Frank, this was your first title out there for the Elias Cup. Ryan, this is your second. I was fortunate to be there the first year the first one that you won with the Lumberjacks. And that was the one year I got to go to Maine, and I am going back. I have to go back. That place is pretty phenomenal.
For me, it was really wild. Being on both sides of that crowd.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's just crazy because I know what it's like to have that crowd behind you and giving you that support and wanting to do it for more than just the team, but to do it for the city. And that was it was a whole different animal. And then when we went in there and I knew what they were capable of, and I knew what that team is capable of and that manager is capable of.
Yeah.
I just kept pep talking the team and trying to keep them prepared for what was coming and how to handle it, because I've been there. I knew what to expect. And a couple of those guys hadn't. Parker hadn't been there.
Oh, wow.
He hadn't been in that position yet. And Frank being new and Sterner, they hadn't gotten that deep, and it hadn't been that meaningful for those guys yet. BJ knew what it was like. He won with the strikers, but I thought it was really important to give my insight to them, because it can happen very quickly and very easily where you let that get to you just enough to throw one errant shot where it could, like you said, and in Baker, it can happen fast, and you only get 2 shots, and if they get you 1 shot based on the guy in front of you throwing one for a triple and the crowd goes absolutely bonkers, it's electric.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's against you, if you're not prepared for that and you don't know how to handle it, it can
make for a long week out there, couldn't it?
It can really affect you.
So since we're talking about that, what do you guys, did you like the atmosphere, bowling in that atmosphere? I mean, just my personal opinion, I've never bowled in that type of atmosphere myself. But I would love it. Playing with the crowd and everything else. Did you guys like that atmosphere? Do you like bowling on a show where everybody's sitting there with their hands folded and watching and quiet? Or did you like the crowd getting along with you?
I mean, I liked it. I think it made the nerves better, but it added a lot of adrenaline.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's so exciting that they get going so much that you're like, man, I'm so ready to do something sweet to erupt with them, that like you get a little ahead of yourself and you get a little bit ahead of the moment, to where like once you can control it, and then you do have those moments of success or you shine through, then it makes it so much sweeter to be accustomed to the crowd and know like what does trigger them in the way that they want to be triggered to get like you and your team going.
And back to what Ryan was saying about sharing his thoughts with the rest of the team. I mean, that's like any other team sport. You got to have that one guy who kind of can rally the kids, or however you want to call it, in a baseball game, or especially a baseball team. I mean, there's always that one guy who's a leadership in the clubhouse, and that's kind of what Ryan was in that situation.
Oh, Sim was the MVP on and off the lanes. Like, he's the one that kept us together, got us amped up. Like, at the end of the day, he was the one that made the call on the purples. And like, I honestly don't know if we win that event if we don't get locked in with those purple hammers.
Well, and I knew you threw a purple. Ryan, what were you throwing most of the week?
Dark web solid, but
okay, that's what I thought.
I'll tell you a few things that I said about this was you have to think outside the box to win the league. And when BJ jumped on board and started throwing the pitch black too, and he was ready to do that in the finals, and we had all of our righties throwing Thane and our lefties throwing reactive, that's about as much outside the box as you're going to get.
There's no question about that.
And so I had a conversation with an anonymous player that I'm not going to name, and he brought up the purples And so I liked the point, and I thought to myself, well, not only is the purple gonna, give these guys fresh lane because everyone else was left at 15.
Yeah.
But I know these guys like to play those angles. They like to see the lane kind of like a lefty. They like to trap it in front of them. They like to see the ball read early. And so I think that that's going to get them more comfortable, and it'll get confidence in them. So then I went to Sterner and Frank and said, I think this is worth considering. And they liked the idea. They were on board. We went over.
They didn't say, "Come on, Ryan, we're not left-handed."
We went over for the semis, and we get one shot on each lane, right?
Right.
And they hadn't thrown them over there yet. So they looked at me and they're like, "Are we doing this? We're going to throw purples?" And BJ heard them, and I hadn't told BJ yet. And BJ looks at me, he's like, "You're gonna what?" And I put my arm around him. I'm like, "B, this is why it's gonna work. It's a good idea. Let them throw one shot at least each, and then if it's not even close, they can throw reactive on the other lane. We already know what the reactive is going to do. So let's try this." And I think they both were like light shakers, if I'm not mistaken, the first shots. And they were close. And I looked at him and I said, "It's close enough to me. I think we pull the trigger." He's like, "We're going to do it." I'm like, "We're doing it." BJ's like, "All right, I'm all in." And we ended up winning that roll off. And after that, me and BJ, we roomed together. So we went back to the room and we're talking. We're kind of watching it back. And BJ goes, "I don't see why I couldn't do that too." I'm like, "Yes."
Yeah.
I didn't want to say it, but I'm like, "Absolutely, you're going to do it too." And he's like, "Hell yeah." I'm like, "All right, we know our plan then." And
that's awesome.
And then they were like, Sterner brought it up. Sterner, as laid back as he is, he still kind of worries, but he just worries in a different way. And he's like, "Man, I think they might catch on. They might do it too." I'm like, "I don't think they're gonna do it, man." I'm like, Timmy wants the whole team playing the lanes the same way because he wants to be able to make judgments off of them, make moves off of them, ball changes, whatever. And if one does it, they all got to do it. And I only think two of them are really comfortable doing it.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're going to do it. And that means for a best of 5, our 3 righties got the whole lane to themselves.
Yeah.
And the 2 lefties were an arrow left of Graham. I'm like, if anything, he's going to give us shim, but he ain't going to touch us. So it was literally our team versus our team. We bowled in no traffic but our own.
Well, with Graham throwing the lefty, like you said, it gives you some shim. If anything, it maybe gave you that little hold down the lane, going through the pocket where you weren't stoning 8 pins or whatever. So, I mean, if you use it to your advantage, it's definitely a good tool.
So yeah, I mean, the judgment call on the urethane was crucial, I'll say.
Very good. Can you guys, either one of you, compare this to anything else in your bowling career?
No,
not particularly.
No, that's pretty big.
It's different. It was different.
So different.
I mean, it was different than even winning the other cup. It's the last time I won, we had a stacked team, which is why I ended up getting dropped. I mean, their choice was me or Prather. And Prather, that was the year Prather was like on every other show and won the players, and he was crushing them. And I'm like, when you're the favorite like that, and you got a team that's that strong, and then you got the city behind you, and it was just different to play the underdog role, to play that Cinderella story, to have this team of misfits, and to go out and do what we did. It's against not just the team, but frankly against the city. Up until my last shot in the 10th frame, and I got a couple fans chanting "choke, choke, choke." That's a different vibe than when they're on your side screaming your name.
Yeah.
So it was just all in all, it was just completely different.
Well, you had I mean, not that you don't ever lack confidence, but you had a different look to you the entire time on television, and probably anything before then.
I wish that I had that all the time. I'd be
I
able
mean,
to
you were definitely a guy who he had one goal and that was it, and it was easily seen on your face every time
I've
you
had
took the ball.
moments like that in my career. They don't come along as often as I'd like, but unfortunately, I need to be triggered. Something has to flip the switch. I've tried to finagle it and do it myself and like talk myself into it, but I can't say really Tiger Woods, but like a Serena Williams, right? Where you can literally watch her and struggle and literally flip a switch and she is just into like a different level, like
Yeah.
above everybody around her. And it's similar to that. When I watch that is what I feel. And it's only happened, 3 or 4 times in my career.
Mm-hmm.
But it is pretty cool. It's a cool feeling where when you get tunnel vision like that and you got that mentality, it's
Tunnel
special.
vision. Tunnel vision is a pretty good term for what you were seeing. And
I mean, it was similar to like The Last Dance where they talked to Michael Jordan. And he's like, I took it personally in all the situations that he would just make up in his head to get himself going and pumped up, like whether this guy did it or didn't.
The Last Dance is where I got the phrase. It was personal.
That's great.
I didn't want to say, and I took that personal like he did, but that's where I kind of got it from.
Very good. Here's a good one. I mean, what was it like being coached by Johnny Petraglia throughout the week?
I mean, for me, it was kind of, part of me almost wished that I was left-handed because I'm like standing there and I'm looking and it's Johnny and then it's Parker and then it's Sim. I'm like, it's like all these great lefties over the years. I'm like, man, I almost wish that I was left-handed just to be a part of this.
It's almost, I mean, with Parker on the team, it's almost like having 2 coaches on your team, really. And then you got the main cheerleader with Ryan, and then the rest of you just learning from all of that. I mean, I mean that's got to be a pretty phenomenal feeling. And Petraglia, I mean, I'm older than both of you guys, and Petraglia is a guy that I watched when I was growing up. What's that?
I would argue that I am as good at ball repping as I am at playing the game.
Yeah.
I would love to be a ball rep, actually. And I've pitched that to Brunswick before. Sterner's my roommate, and I had a couple bad years, and I'm sure he would vouch for me where when I'm missing cuts and then I can just sit behind him and do all his dirty work for him and just let him bowl. He's made shows because of me, and he'll tell you, I got a pretty good eye, and what the sick part is, I would argue that I understand the right side of the lane better than I understand the left, especially the past few years.
You and I had this conversation when we were at Bowl Expo, that exact conversation about Sterner and how you would be the eyeballs for him behind him. And that's kind of, I mean, being able to see the right side better than the left side. I mean, you watch a lot more righties than you do lefties. So that
it also makes
into that a little bit.
The right side makes sense to me. I can't make sense of what these guys do and how the lane breaks down because of it, and what the answers are theoretically supposed to be, because they're not the right answers. So on the right side, I got the answers. I've seen it 100 times. I know the plays that need to be made. So it's fun ball repping a good righty, man. It was I enjoyed watching Sterner succeed, and part of that was in the league and me making that call and trying to get them into the urethane and believe in what I saw. and the enjoyment and fulfillment you get out of it after being right and watching them just make shots and their confidence go through the roof, and watching it all work out and come together like that is honestly as good or better of a feeling than it is when you're doing it on your own.
Sure, I get that. Yeah, it always feels good when you're right too.
It doesn't suck either.
You're right. It does not.
I enjoy being right. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. So just a couple more things, guys. We've been on 35 minutes. This next one, we talked about it briefly before we went live, is what were your feelings throughout all of the matches and then leading up to the finals? I mean, you guys were not supposed to win, right? According to paper.
No.
According to a lot of things.
According to paper.
According to a lot of people, we weren't supposed to. For me personally, I feel like I went on a big journey this week. I mean, compared to the way that my show started, compared to the way that my show's finished, I think it was a leaps and bounds different for me. So it was nice to be able to have those moments, but then also have moments of reflection to come back and be stronger and better. And like I told so many people, you know, if I was bowling a singles match and I opened 7 times in a row, I wouldn't think anything of it. Like, all right, whatever. But when you open one time and there's 4 guys depending on you, you're like, man, God, that sucked. Like, all right, let's quit doing that. And then like you almost end up beating yourself up more than they would because they believe in you. But then when you start second guessing yourself, you're like, all right, man. Then you're pressing to not let bad things happen instead of just controlling the moment and letting good things happen. Like you can't be afraid of something good to happen to you.
Absolutely.
True.
And that being said, I mean, Frank, you're going to be out on tour again this year, I'm sure. Would you use anything that you learned from this past week or from last week when you are out there on the singles for a singles tournament?
Yeah. I think this week alone is really going to help with like just slow it down, control it a little more. Like everything's going to be okay. At the end of the day, you are in control. So if the faster that you get back in control and stop letting it spiral out of control, like the longer it's going to help you and, you know, the greater success you're going to have.
Ryan, can we have your thoughts going through each match, you know, and I mean, where was your, I mean, other than your tunnel vision?
It was crazy because I remember times in the league where I had genuine concern about losing, about not having the ball in my hand and having to rely on others and being scared that they weren't going to pry it off. And I remember having those thoughts and genuinely getting myself worked up over it.
Yeah.
And not one time this past week, not one time did I ever have that feeling. I was never concerned about what they were going to do. I was never concerned about any one of them. That I knew their belief was there. I knew that the heart was there, and I knew that we trusted each other. Our judgment calls, our moves, our ball changes, our lane play. Everyone trusted everyone. We were all in communication, and it calmed me in that aspect. So I never had that feeling. And yeah, it was a roller coaster when you look at the scores and you look at, you know, I needed to hit the first shot in the 10th to win the first game. I have to strike out in the 10th frame to make EJ strike out just to get off of the ladder. But at no point was there any anxiety. It was all business. It was all right. I'm just going to get this done now for them because they got me.
They got you there.
Here, and now I need to get us across the finish line. And I believed that's what they drafted me for. I believe that's what they needed out of me when they drafted me. And so I was up for the challenge. I mentally had been waiting for that moment. And so it came along immediately, but I had been prepared for that from the moment they drafted me. I was ready. I wanted it. I wanted it not for me. I wanted it for all of us. It was just, and it was one after another. And then in the finals, it might have been one of the best performances ever in the league, honestly.
I can't disagree. I mean, I watch it every year. It was pretty phenomenal.
I've watched it back twice now, and I mean, the worst shot thrown between 5 guys in a best of 5 was a 3-pin.
Yeah.
I mean, that's seriously, that's sick. That is a sick performance.
I there was the one night, and I think it might have been the night before the championship where it went to a roll off. Is that correct?
Yeah, us and Dallas, yeah.
Yep.
And I text you probably before you guys were off the lanes when you threw your one shot in the 10th or in the roll off or whatever it was. I can't remember. It might have been, and I've watched a lot of bowling. I've watched your bowling a lot, you know, growing up and watching, you know, just as he's at my age, watched a lot of you on the TV. That one shot you threw was probably the best shot I've ever seen you throw from your follow through and your focus. And I mean, it was incredible. I text you and you kind of got a kick out of it, but
so
it was.
I don't necessarily, I don't think I can disagree, but the whole thing, I didn't want the whole moment to get away from me, because that moment was a special moment no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
When
and
I get
not
to
just
bowl,
for you. Yeah,
exactly. So I get to bowl this 9th and 10th roll off with my idol, come friend, come, he's more than a friend now. Like
right.
Me and Parker our relationship is special, and getting to bowl the 9th and 10th with him was special in itself. And then to watch Maldy do what he did,
Mm-hmm.
when you see him 310, you're like, this match is probably over. And dude gets up, and he was nervous, man.
Yeah.
And he gets up and he makes the 310, and it doesn't even matter if he doesn't strike behind it. And to throw a strike after a 310 is sick in itself.
Right.
Then if you can watch back, and Tommy looks at him and he's like, "You ready? You want it?" And he hesitated for a split second, and he's like, "I got it."
Yeah.
And like that dude, like that to me, like nothing but respect for dude. He gets up and strikes again.
Yeah.
And I was just flat out impressed. I'm like, wow, like he really put me in this situation.
Yeah.
Like, damn. And I said, that's gonna suck for him when I strike here. I mean, it never crossed my mind that I wasn't striking. I just was wondering if I was going to strike to keep the match going, or if I was going to be able to strike to end it,
to win. Right.
And when he strikes, and I'm like, man, he's got it. Like you could see that joy, and the team's hugging him, like he came through, and that moment is awesome for him, and I was happy for him. And I'm like, but it's going to suck in a moment when I get up here and split the 8-9. And I split the 8-9, and I turn around and I'm doing the not yet to the team. I'm looking at all of them, and I make eye contact with Maldy. And Maldy is just smiling ear to ear. Like the dude is just a fan at that moment. And he was like,
right.
Like, damn, he done did it again. And then we end up winning after those next 2 shots. And he comes over to me and he goes, "You won bad, dude, bro."
Yeah.
And I was like, look in the mirror, bro. Like, do you see what you did? Like, don't sell yourself short.
Right.
Like that was impressive, bro. And so just the mutual respect of some of these guys is just, it's nice. It's a good reminder, and it makes it all the more fun when you know what they're going through. You're going through the same stuff. So it's cool.
Well, and we said this earlier, you guys were the number 7 seed out of 10 teams. You knocked off the number 1, the number 2, and the number 3 seed going through the bracket. Very, very fun to watch. Incredible feat. And that, like I said, it's the best I've seen 5 guys bowl together in a Baker type setting like that in anything. And I've run Baker tournaments, and I've watched college, and I've watched the high school Baker. I mean, I've seen all kinds of stuff, but it was the best 5, the group of 5 together that meshed as well as you guys did that I've ever watched. And it was definitely, like you said, maybe one of the best things that a team has ever done. And one of the best teams actually that's bowled in this is becoming the champion this year. And it's something for both of you to be super proud of. You're both part of Bowlifi. I know Bowlifi is very, very proud of all of your team and both of you guys. We wouldn't want it any different. We were glad to have it. Glad to see you guys win. I know I was rooting for you all the way through. I was low-key rooting for Graham to do well because Graham's a buddy of mine. He bowls a lot of my tournaments, and he was 10 for 10.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
So, it kind of worked out good.
Yep.
So we're going to finish this up. We just have one more thing that I want to ask him. You guys, Frank, you're still a young guy. Ryan, you're still a young guy to me. Do you have any advice for the very young guys, high school bowlers, youth bowlers that are coming up through? Do you have any advice for them, or maybe even new league bowlers, practice drills, anything that can help them move up a level?
My advice, not really when it comes to anything physically or anything like that, is that my advice is you don't need to compare yourself to anyone. Like, there is no timetable for success. Like, they call it a career for a reason. You're not measured by it until you're done. So, whether a guy wins before you or wins after you, whatever the case is, like, it doesn't make his career any better than yours until you're both done. Like, people just do it at different rates, or people start later than others, and people have, life is important. Like, life goes away a lot, So I just think that you don't need to set a timetable or an expectancy. The faster you can let things happen, the faster things will actually happen for you.
Well, and you got to be careful if you're young trying to do that from home and trying to be like somebody else. You could run into a Christmas tree and knock over all mom's ornaments. So you got to be careful. So, Ryan, do you have any tips for these folks?
Honestly, the biggest thing for me growing up was being surrounded by insane amounts of knowledge. And so if you can't be immediately surrounded by it, if that's not on the table for you, the internet has done a lot for a lot of people. And so it's out there. The information is out there. You cannot absorb enough to just continue watching, continue learning.
Frank's lights went out again.
I was fortunate enough to have a lot of very, very high caliber players around and friends with my father. And so I would just sit there and absorb. They would bowl league on Friday nights, and
hey, Frank,
we'd get a ton of chicken wings at the bowl afterwards, and we'd all sit down around a table, and I would just listen and just absorb it all, just be a sponge.
Well, when I grew up, and that's a great way to learn. When I grew up, my dad taught me a lot of bowling. I was running around with him, at 5 years old at the bowling center while he's bowling his leagues. I was fortunate to have a super coach growing up through youth leagues. But I think I've learned more by watching other people, watching other players, watching their moves, watching what they do. Yeah. And that would certainly be any advice I give is, if you're trying to learn something, not everybody's going to throw it the same. Not everybody's going to look the same going to the foul line. Watch where they are at the foul line, though. Biggest example and best example I could ever give is Brandon Novak, who, who's got a crazy arm swing, but at the foul line and at the bottom of his swing, it's the same every time. And that's what makes him successful. So watching people watching tournaments. I love, like I said, I'm a bowling nerd, so I love going to bowling tournaments, and I'll go to a PBA stop just to watch.
You're a nerd. You probably know the guys I'm speaking of. I mean, they're probably your age group, anyways. So like I grew up watching not just Brad Angelo, but Mike Newman, Dave Gwendon, guys that have won the high rollers and the Hoinky and all the amateur stuff when the money was crazy, mini eliminators, Brad Kazuski, guys like that. I grew up watching these guys bowl 3-4 days a week. And so I learned from some of the most versatile righties in my opinion, on the planet.
Well,
those guys were crazy good.
I'm fortunate enough to live in the same town with Ken Abner and Jeff Fair.
Abner's
and
okay too.
Abner's okay.
Yeah, he's okay.
And I got to sponge a lot of knowledge off of Steve growing up. So
Fair's a good player too.
Yeah.
Very good.
So, guys, I appreciate your time.
Glad to be here.
Frank, I hope you get your light problem figured out.
Yeah, I'm gonna need that check to clear.
Gotcha.
I just got the email today. Don't worry, buddy. It's coming.
It's coming. I saw that.
All right, we're gonna shut it down.
Bro.
We're gonna shut it down for the evening, fellas. This was fun.
All right.
Appreciate your time and saying okay to do this with us, and maybe we'll be doing it again sometime soon.
Hopefully.
All right, everybody watching. Hopefully you have a great week, the rest of the week, and have a good weekend. And we'll see y'all soon.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take it easy.
Thank
Bye,
you.
boys.
Bye-bye.